one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reminder to everyone to silence their cell phones. Meeting documents are available for review down in the end next to Commissioner Heiberger. And Carol is here if you need a listening device. So that takes us to our routine business. I'd consider a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is a motion to approve the commission meeting minutes from June 11th, 2019.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is bills to be paid in the amount of $4,438,021.84.
Pay the bills.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments? Commissioner Barth.
Madam Chair, there's $3.7 million basically in jail costs on this. It's a continuing project, and we get periodic bills.
Yep, the construction you can see is really
Sorry,
going.
I should have said construction, not just jail.
Yeah, not just operating. So, anything else? If not, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I'd recommend a couple of the reports here for your review. There's a mobile crisis team statistics for May of 2019 and the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Report for May of 2019. Takes us to personnel actions. I'd consider a motion to approve routine personnel actions.
So
Motion
moved.
to approve.
Motion and a second,
Second.
I believe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is to consider a motion to approve an update to Section 14.2 of the Employee Handbook on allowable expenses for reimbursement of meals, effective July 1st, 2019. That was a mouthful. Hi, Carey.
Good morning, Carey Deaver from Human Resources. We're requesting your approval on an update to the handbook to reflect a meal reimbursement increase for both lunch and dinner for in-state and out-of-state. What we're requesting is the same reimbursement rates as used by the state. There's no requirement that we follow those same rates, but we have in the past, and we're recommending this approval this morning.
Any questions for Carey?
Rates.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Next item are abatements. There are none. Item 7, notices and requests. There are none. Item 8, planning and zoning notices. There are none. And item 9, petition for compromise of lien. There are none. So this takes us to an opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to comment about something that's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity. If you could just give your name and address, please. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the Minnehaha County Commission. I'm John Cunningham, 4904 South Oxbow, Sioux Falls. There have been articles in Argus Leader discussing the budget problems facing the Commission. I studied economics and hold a master's degree in public administration and public finance, and I believe you'll almost certainly need to opt out of the revenue cap that the legislature, in their lack of wisdom, imposed, following their philosophy that centralized control of funding is better than local control. I also believe in the social contract, that we give government the power, authority, and revenue, and in return they use it to make the jurisdiction a better place to live, work, and do business. My point here today is that the jail expansion is the use of a large amount of tax resources that does not do this. My understanding is that the jail expansion is largely driven by the growing drug problem in Minnehaha County and resulted in the county issuing nearly $50 million in bonds to build an expansion of the jail, and will require lifting the revenue caps in order to staff the facility and provide food, supplies, utilities, etc. for the additional inmates. The sheriff has explained the reasons for the need for the jail, but it will not make Minnehaha County a better place to live, work, and do business. The reason is that you cannot incarcerate away the problem. It's a futile exercise in supply-side economics, because there are many times as many consumers as there are suppliers of drugs. It's tempting to take the apparently easy way out and attack the supply rather than the demand for drugs. As a nation, we've done this. If the sheriff arrested 100 drug users today, or dealers today, we'd spend a large amount of money on judge, jury, bailiff, prosecutor, etc., to convict them, and then over $100 a day to provide room, board, and babysitter for them while in jail. And yet by Friday, every one of those would be replaced. Eventually, the jail expansion will be full, and the problem will still not be solved, and $50 million will not have made Minnehaha County a better place to live, work, and do business. Again, the problem here is supply-side economics. And if we look in history, basic capitalist economics says if there is a demand, there will be a supply. Prohibition attempted to attack the supply of alcohol. However, it never did eliminate the supply or even significantly reduce it. As supply wars broke out, some between law enforcement and suppliers, but there were so many suppliers that even more wars broke out among the suppliers themselves, and eventually we threw in the towel and repealed prohibition. Illegal immigration is another example of failed supply-side economics. Rather than attack the businesses that demand illegal immigration, immigrant labor, we've tried unsuccessfully to stem the supply. The wall is the latest supply-side effort that will fail to stop the supply because of the economic reason that we still demand the labor, and also the practical reason that walls can be reached. The Manchurians breached the greatest wall in history and defeated the great Ming dynasty. And we have thousands of miles of unwalled shoreline. The drug effort is prohibition all over again, including the supply wars. The only successful effort we have ever made to address a widespread problem is tobacco. Tobacco usage per capita has reduced 70% since the Attorney General issued his warning in the 1960s. And it's based entirely on education and treatment, such as the patch, that has reduced demand, and all without a single person being incarcerated. If we had taken the millions, and I estimate $5 million per year, that we're spending on the jail expansion and operation and spend it on education and treatment, I see two different outcomes. First, if we reduce the number of drug users through prevention and rehabilitation, it automatically reduces the number of dealers without jailing anyone. Second, if we rehabilitate even 500 users per year, let's say 10,000 apiece because it's expensive for successful treatment, that would create 500 more productive citizens that can get and hold jobs, making Minnehaha County a better place to live and work. The jail does not do that. I recognize that drug use is extremely difficult, expensive, and time-consuming to treat, and success rate with current treatment methods is low. But solving the drug problem, or at least reducing it, can only be done through the demand. It can never be done by incarcerating the supply. It's true that we have some programs in place, but they're so small that they're not much more effective than incarceration. An effective program is very expensive, and it will take a great deal of money. I also recognize that my comments are not timely. The $50 million has already been committed, and you can't undo that. So I understand what I'm saying is out of date. But to provide an effective prevention and treatment program to actually make Minnehaha County a better place to live, work, and do business would add a very large chunk to the already stretched budget and really should be shared with the federal, state, and city. It adds up to an extremely challenging budget year, of which you are already aware, but it still provides only a pittance for prevention and treatment. I don't envy you your budget deliberations, but I do thank you for your time and giving me the chance to share my thoughts with you. My very best wishes to you in making Minnehaha County a better place to live, work, and do business.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this morning for public comment? Good morning.
No gun.
Michelle Boyd with the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Scott McMahon. He started with Metro Communications on June 3rd, and he'll be doing 13 weeks of part-time prior to going full-time at 911 Center. But I'll tell you, he's already hit the ground running. We've had a number of meetings, and I think we found a really good candidate here who has some good experience. He's been with the Watertown Police Department since April 1st of 1994. And I was talking to him, both of us started our law enforcement career on April Fool's Day, so I'm not quite sure what that means, but we're still here. So he retired as the captain of their support services, and in that role, he directed the operation of the 911 Center, which serves a 6-county area in northeast South Dakota. And when the sheriff and some of the other interview panel did background on Scott, they couldn't find someone who didn't rave about the work that he's done and the bridges that he builds and the relationships he had up there. Matter of fact, they were sad to see him go. So we benefit from their loss. And with that, I'll let him give you a little bit more history and welcome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm extremely grateful to have been selected to serve as the Metro Communications Director. It's an honor and it's a privilege to be able to lead and direct the 911 team that we have here in Minnehaha County. Communication officers play an extremely important role in public safety. They are the first ones in any event or in any emergency that we call and look forward to for help until either fire, law enforcement, or EMS can arrive on scene to take over. So their role is just extremely critical in providing those services to the public as well as first responders. We're very much looking forward to continuing to improve upon what we already have at Minnehaha County. We have a great staff, years and years of experience, quite a bit of diversity in education and life experience as well. So we look forward to continue to serve the public as well as the first responders. And I invite you to stop over at any point in time to just take a look at the work that the folks are doing over there. And we certainly will certainly appreciate your continued support of the 911 operations here in Minnehaha County. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming this morning.
You're welcome.
It's good to meet you. Anyone else for public comment this morning? Anybody else for something that's not on our agenda? All right. That will take us to regular business. And the first item is a public hearing and second reading on an amendment to the 1990 revised zoning ordinance for the Minnehaha County rezoning 1905. Scott Anderson, good morning.
Yes, Scott Anderson, County Planning Director, and today is the public hearing and second reading of a rezoning request, 1905. This is to rezone approximately 5 acres of property, which is located approximately 4 miles southwest of Baltic. The petition is to rezone the 5 acres from A1 agriculture to a planned development, and the planned development would be called the Almond Branch Planned Development. The planned development is for an events facility / what we would call a wedding barn. And currently, the 5 acres is vacant. There's a shelter belt there and some farm field, some ag property. This hearing request went to the Planning Commission on May 20th. There was a public hearing at the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended to deny the rezoning request 6-1. And I have included the minutes of the Planning Commission for your review. On the screen in front of you and for the audience is the proposed 5-acre parcel. You can see the shelter belt, and the remainder of the property is farm fields. But I'd be glad to answer any questions. I can show you the slides, but basically it's an empty farm field at this point. I would be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for Scott this time?
Housing eligibility on this property, right?
There is one housing eligibility, and thank you for correcting me on that. It would allow for a wedding barn, event center / and a single-family residence if it would be approved. The applicant would like to retain the possibility of building a house there as well. So thank you.
So we're not approving the housing eligibility, just the change from ag to,
Well, so the mechanics of this rezoning request is currently it has a building eligibility and is zoned A1 agriculture, but when you move it over to a planned development, you need to identify all of the allowable uses. So we need to make sure we include that allowable use as a single family residence, so it's spelled out. There's no doubt they have a use. One single family residence could be built on the property, and this future wedding barn.
Any other questions? Commissioner Barth.
Scott, I wonder if you could show the picture of the church to the south there.
Sure. Let's see here. So this is what the applicant is, generally proposing for the event center, wedding barn. This is the road, 471st, that leads up to the property. The road, of course, I took these in May, and we've had a tough spring. The road is in very, very rough condition. This is the farm field. In the background, you can see there's an old dilapidated building if you look closely, but this is the subject property. And this is looking directly south. So this is looking north, or looking from the north into the existing shelter belt. The concern that the Planning Commission had was really twofold, and what staff had and conveyed, the concerns that staff had and then conveyed to the Planning Commission is, first of all, it's basically 2 miles of gravel road, and the road is in very poor condition, but probably of more concern to staff and the Planning Commission is that directly adjacent to this property, there is an approved 1,500 head confined animal feeding operation, a feedlot, and it is a conflicting land use in my opinion, and I think that's what's the Planning Commission also was concerned, was the conflicting land use of an existing feedlot being, and then a wedding barn facility being located adjacent to it. And you can see this is from the applicant's subject property, you can see the feedlot, which is the white hoop building to in the background, as well as there were already cattle on the property. There's an existing residence across the street, and then if you look, you can see the road, and to the south you can see the church. On the county highway, this is the church. This is looking basically south, and it was showing the condition of the road was the intent of this picture. So, but shows you the condition of the road.
How far from the property to that church?
1.5 miles.
Any other questions for Scott? Okay, if there are no other questions at this time, if the applicant is here, the applicant is free to come forward and speak. Morning, if you could just give your name and address, please.
Sure. Parth Patel, 1518 West Havens Avenue, Mitchell, South Dakota. That road is pretty in a rough condition, 471. So what we thought as a family is 137 goes right a mile to the west of it, and it's an oil road. So what we would consider is giving people an incentive to take that road instead of 471, because when you take 137, 253 cuts east to it, and that borders our property just south of there. So we would give incentive for like the deposit, like, you know, if you take this road, we'll give you a discount on the event center. So that's what we were thinking. We're open to ideas about the road. The other part was the feedlot. We are going to be mostly indoors, so for us, that's not a problem. The shelter belt kind of blocks the cows out for us, so we're not too worried about it. It's kind of a nostalgic feeling for us, but I do understand, you know, the neighbor north could, you know, be worried that there's an event center down south. So I understand that, but we're working to be flexible around that.
Are there any questions? Okay, if there aren't any questions, and anybody who's opposed to this amendment to the zoning ordinance could certainly come forward and speak at this time. Is there anyone here that's opposed? All right, then I guess it's up to the commissioners. Commissioner Karski.
Scott, I think this is probably a question more for you. You talk about conflicting land use. We're not talking about putting a feedlot next to a wedding barn. We're talking about putting a wedding barn next to a feedlot. And to me, that's totally different scenario, one versus the other. You want to talk about how the conflicting land use idea and, you know, that what I just presented as far as the more the use that would be more offensive to the wedding barn when the wedding barn's already knowing full well what's there. I mean,
Well, that is correct. I think that you are I think we're making the assumption, and certainly the property owner knows what they're getting into. But that's not to say that my concern from a conflicting land use is that there's going to be wedding parties there, brides, grooms, mothers of the bride, that are going to be incredibly unhappy, and they are going to be complaining when they're out there decorating or whatever, that there's smell, there's flies, and they're gonna call the county, and they're gonna be saying, you know, you gotta do something because my daughter's getting married there tomorrow, and there's flies, there's smell, the road's dusty. So I think that while the applicant is aware of this, my concern is that the conflicting land use is gonna fall upon the users of the facility, and they're gonna be surprised that, and I know it's buyer beware. They should have gone out and looked at the site before they rented it. It just, I think that there's a possibility that there's certainly going to be concern. And once that use is established, if the adjacent property owner wants to continue to expand, that would be when you're gonna have a conflict, because there would be a hearing process to expand the feedlot or the confined animal feeding operation. And even though this property owner may acknowledge that there's an existing feedlot, that's not to say that this property owner couldn't sell it. And then a future property owner is going to say, I don't want this agricultural use expanded because, you know, while I could put up with 1,500 beef cows, I don't want to put up with 3,000 beef cows now. And there's a potential that the adjacent property owner, the feedlot, could be negatively impacted by a use that we're introducing into an agricultural community.
So it's not 1,500 animal units, it's 1,500,
Well, it's 1,500 animal units.
which is how
And,
many cows?
One. This isn't a dairy. It's a meat producing facility. So it's one steer equals one
unit.
animal unit.
Okay, okay. How many hogs could you have in this?
Well, it depends. The hogs are broken down into sizes of hogs.
Okay.
Little baby hogs, you know, it's like 4 to 1, and big old sows are 1 to 1.
Okay, okay. Okay. Was there any opposition from that feedlot?
He
to-
attended the planning commission and indicated that I think if you look at the minutes, I think he indicated that he really wasn't, he was concerned, but was being, I hate to put in what I assume that he was thinking or saying. He attended the meeting.
Okay, okay.
Any other, Commissioner Benega?
Scott, I can see, frankly, excuse me, some concerns about the road, but I don't see anything different with that particular comment about what's going to go next to the neighbors as I would see with Falls Park next to John Morrell's.
Well, I just, there's a potential for a conflicting land use there. And yes, that's not to say that there are not other conflicting land uses in the city and in the county.
Right.
But if it can be avoided now, maybe all the better is the thought.
Well, I guess I believe in the free enterprise system, both for the people who built the feedlot and for those who want to choose to build a wedding barn. My concern is if this is just based on what could happen with complaints, that's life. We all have those issues that we need to deal with, and as long as land use is not being violated, which I don't think it is, when I read through this, I'm having a difficulty time understanding why this would be declined, if you will.
I think the planning commission certainly they were concerned for the majority of the planning commission were concerned with locating this next to a feedlot. That was their major concern. And You know, you are correct, Commissioner Benega, that we're having the public hearing, the current property owner, or the developer, the applicant should be aware of the issues that they're going to face. And that is, in my opinion, the road and the adjacent existing land use. Now, you know, they should be aware of it.
Do you have an estimate on how many cars potentially would be using that road on a weekend?
Well, I think the seating capacity was like 250 approximately, and you can figure, you know, most of the attendees are going to come in twos. So you're looking at between 100 and 150 cars per event, I would anticipate. Maybe a few more, other people setting up and caterers and whatever.
So the alternating route that was suggested, is that going to be a concern?
Well, it maybe shortens it by half a mile of the route that they would have to take. So in the past, when we've had similar event centers, wedding barns, you may recall one was on a paved county highway. The other event center was a few hundred feet off a paved existing road, and the Planning Commission and the County Board required that applicant always maintain dust control from basically their driveway to the pavement. You know, in this circumstance, it's not feasible to require someone to put down basically 1 mile to 2 miles of magnesium chloride on a continuous basis to keep the dust down. Because there is a lot of, farm traffic that's going up and down that road, and I'm not sure how well magnesium chloride is going to hold up for that distance.
Commissioner Heiberger.
Even if you come from the highway, you're going 1.5 miles on that gravel road, and that gravel road goes like this. And if you're putting 150 cars on there on a weekend, you're putting a tremendous amount of stress on that road that's used by farmers, because we are sticking a wedding barn in the middle of an agricultural area. And so I'm really conflicted by this, because I'd like to see the free enterprise, and I like to see people to do whatever they want to do with their property. I have not completely made up my mind one way or another yet, but I am concerned about the road. I live on that side of the county, and so I'm familiar with this road a little bit. I've driven down it several times, not recently, but I have driven down it. So I do know what they're looking at to drive there. I have the same concern Scott does, is that as agriculture continues to grow and we continue to spot and throw things in, that it's a problem for agriculture. I mean, so the farmer wants to combine at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock all the way around that farm, and you've got all that noise going on. What kind of complaints are we going to get back as a planning commission saying, you guys get that tractor out of the field? Well, this is a farming community. I don't know that I like wedding barns, and it's not a horrible place next to a church, a 1.5 miles away, but I don't know if this is exactly the right spot. If it was across the street, if you just moved that whole thing down onto the highway, I'd probably be more in favor of it. But the position it's in, look around it. It's all farms. And so we approve this one, and then somebody buys 20 acres next to them, and they're going to put up a gas station? Obviously not, but I'm just saying, you start to lose your agriculture. We already have an issue with building eligibilities where we break off one, and here goes 20 acres off of the middle of this farmland and getting complaints. And so I do have concerns. I want to listen to the rest of the commissioners' comments before I make up my mind which way I'm going, but this is ag land.
Commissioner Karski.
What's the value of the buildings going on this property? Do we know?
I think it's undetermined. The applicant has just proposed a concept at this point. There's no specific building plans that have been submitted, so.
We have an idea of what a wedding barn looks like based on a picture. My point in bringing that up is this land's gonna get developed and improved and be taxed at a much higher rate than it currently is. And, you know, part of that tax goes back to the township for maintenance of roads and the improvement and betterment for everybody. I mean, even though it's gonna be used maybe one night on a weekend, the county benefits, the township benefits. I see it as a win-win economically for most involved. Is there always gonna be a little bit of heartburn when it comes to something out like this? Yeah, probably. Yeah, the traffic, there were an extra 70 cars by my house over this 4-hour period once a week. Yeah, it's gonna happen.
I think that might be a question you would like to pose to the applicant, because I think that their business model would like to have more than one event there a week. I mean, it could be several, it could be every week, it could be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe additional meetings throughout the week.
Well, can I ask that question of you? What is your business model? How many events per week?
If you could come back to the mic, thank you.
Right now, Dean, we're considering Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Or like, if they want to prepare for a Saturday wedding, then they could have it for Friday, prepare. So that would be a little bit flexible, but,
So a
we
couple of
want
weddings a week.
weekend, yeah. Yeah. So that could be 2 or 3, but I would assume 2 if people want to set up for a day before.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other comments? Commissioner Barth.
Madam Chair, thank you. The applicant certainly is working hard to get this thing going. And Scott's comment about conflicting land use, I know of a dairy on the east side of town where it's been in existence for generations, and in Split Rock Township, and that even township supervisors who moved to the area after that thing came into existence call me with complaints. And, it's been there since before they were there, but now they find it to be outrageous. And I guess I see a similar concern here, and the fact that the applicant here is quite reasonably suggesting that, he will put up with it. His successor corporation may not. And I guess that is weighing on me a little.
Anything else?
I'd make a motion to, let me make sure I word this right, unless somebody else has more comments while I'm thinking about this. To approve the conditional use permit as applied, as the applicant applied for. Does that make sense?
I'll second, whatever that made sense.
Okay.
If I may, Madam Chair, to clarify, Dean, you're choosing to, or hoping to reverse the decision of the Planning Commission.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's my motion too.
So what I think our motion needs to be is an ordinance to approve the ordinance amending the 1990 revised zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County with the, as presented by the Planning Commission. Is that correct? We've got a lot of ideas here. So the motion needs to be to reverse the Planning Commission and to approve the rezoning request number 1905.
Correct. And that's exactly what I intended in my motion.
That's what I thought I heard.
Yep, okay, good. And, not to offend the Planning Commission, because they do a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of work for us, and I appreciate their process. And, our commission, our board, is to look at it maybe from a different perspective than the planning commission. So appreciate the work of them, but I just feel that this is an acceptable use. And I'm not here to tell anybody that they have a good business plan, to vet their business plan, to tell them, you want to think about this. That's their job to look at that. So from the land use perspective, it seems to make sense, and to let the owner of this property do what they want there isn't infringing on anybody else. We're worried about how other people may infringe upon him, but I don't see that as a valid argument in this case.
Commissioner Heiberger.
I can't support this because we don't have anything in that ordinance about what they're going to do with the road. And I think that that's something that should have been addressed. I'm not sure that I could have supported it anyway. I think that the mixed use is not a good idea, but the road issue is the first issue, and that has not even been addressed in this. So for that reason, I will be not supporting this.
Any further comments, Commissioner Barth?
Madam Chair, I am also going to reverse my vote from the Planning Commission and not support the motion. I think that the conflicting land use is a significant issue upon reflection, and I think Commissioner Heiberger's comment on the road is also significant.
Okay, well, I, at this time, am not willing to approve it either. I think I would be willing to relook at it if it came back with some additional restrictions on the road. But at this point, I just think that that given the road issues, and I guess I fall a little bit in Commissioner Heiberger's camp, given the what is, I think, clearly, if the shoe was on the other foot, we would say was clearly a conflicting land use. If they were going to be, if this was a CAFO coming in and wanting to go next to a rutting barn, I think we would all pretty clearly see that as conflicting, and I think it's really no different here. It seems different because the applicant would like to do this and is saying that they're okay with that, but that is just not, I think, reality of how it would going forward. And I think our job is to, think long term and how that would play out. And I don't see that as being in the best interest. So, so we have a motion and a second, so we can go do a roll call vote.
Karski,
Aye.
Barth,
No.
Benega,
Aye.
Heiberger,
No.
Bender.
No. So that motion fails 3-2. Do we need another motion? So we need another motion.
Make a motion to uphold the Planning Commission decision on rezoning 19-05.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Barth,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Heiberger,
Aye.
Karski,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so that takes us to the next item, which is a public hearing to consider an appeal of a decision by the Minnehaha County Planning Commission to approve conditional use permit number 19-17 to allow the transfer of one building eligibility. Scott Anderson.
Yes, Scott Anderson again, and this is an appeal that was submitted by Roger and Dana Mulder. They have appealed a conditional use permit, 1907, which would allow for the transfer of one building eligibility, and that is in Section 34 of Township 101 North, Range 47 West. This, for your, to understand where this is located, I can go through the map here a little bit. This is basically about 2 miles straight east of the casino on the state line. So the property to the south is in Lyon County, and the property to the north is in Minnehaha County in South Dakota. And 268th is a paved county highway. The applicant is requesting to transfer a building eligibility from the upper portion of that property, which is the northwest of the southwest quarter. They would like to transfer it down to the southwest of the southwest quarter. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this on a unanimous basis. I have included the minutes from the Planning Commission. I've also included the appeal letter from the applicant, and they have stated their concerns on why they would not like to have the building eligibility transferred. The people, the couple that appealed the conditional use permit are here. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. This is a pretty straightforward request of moving it from one quarter to another quarter.
Commissioner Heiberger.
So just for clarification, sorry, Scott, the top box, the building eligibility is in the top red box, and they're just moving it to the bottom red box?
Basically, yeah. That top red box is in the northwest of the southwest quarter. There's a quarter cutoff line there, and it's going to the south portion. I think that ultimately they would like to have the new proposed building site to be accessed off the paved county highway.
Any other questions? Commissioner Karski.
Where on that bigger box would the home be?
Well, I don't know if I can. It's my understanding that they would like to construct that home in this general area. They're moving the eligibility from this quarter section down to this quarter section. Oops. That is correct. Yeah. And I think that all the parties are, all the parties are here to answer questions for you too.
Commissioner Heiberger.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but just clarification again, but if parcels are connected, touching each other, which these two are, then you can move a building eligibility to another section, and then if he moved the building eligibility to the bottom red box, he could potentially build anywhere in the box, because you're not
Correct.
restricted to your section where you have moved it to. You can, if you have building eligibility in your quarter, you can build anywhere on your quarter you want. So
That's correct.
basically all we're doing is moving from one box to the other, and there is no question at this point as to where he builds the house, because that would be his discretion.
That's correct.
Any other questions? Okay, if the applicant is here, the applicant can come forward and speak. If you just identify yourself, your name and address, please. Thank you.
Dalton Grimius, the son of the owner of the property, 48250 268th Street is where I live. That we're moving a housing eligibility from the north side of the property to the south side in order to break off that and build a home on that bottom corner, essentially, next to the county highway.
Any questions for the applicant?
Let me ask a quick question.
Commissioner Barth.
So would your plan be to have a driveway going on to the Blacktop Road, or would it go onto the Township Road?
Ideally, it would be onto the Blacktop Road, but if the county commission decides that we need to put it onto the gravel road, that's fine. It just would minimize the gravel travel.
Any other questions? Okay. If there's anyone opposed to this application, they could come forward and speak at this time. Once again, just your name and address, please. Thank you.
I'm Jen Mulder. On behalf of my parents, I actually live in Sioux Falls, 2930 North Jessica Avenue. But my folks live right next door to where the proposed mobile would be. Our biggest concerns is the way that land lays there, where that 4 acres is that they want to cut off. It basically slopes straight down into a natural waterway. So essentially, if they wanted to have a driveway there, it would be gravel road. They would have maybe 50 feet of room that they could put in a driveway without it sloping straight down into water. And also, folks' biggest concern is the way that it runs. If you were to put a house on it, how would the drainage run for like septic tank? If you start to run rural water that way, we're already right on the end of that water line. We've had the water company out numerous times to check water pressure, and the best guess that they can give as to why water pressure is so minimal out there is because they're right on the end. When they bought that property, they had to run the rural water there, so it's already been extended once. And if you add more onto it right in that straight line, what's that gonna do for the housing there? We have horses and other farm animals and stuff that we want to make sure everything stays running and up to par on that. Also, I mean, you move out into the country to have space around you. That's also encroaching in on what we've developed there. So, I don't know, I guess the biggest concern is mostly the drainage on the property. It's all gonna run into the waterway. There's stock dam down there, habitats and stuff that we don't really wanna see run out. I know I kind of addressed that in the letter that they wrote, so.
Any questions?
Also, one other thing too is that property, as soon as they started the permit process, they put it up for sale right away too. So I'm assuming they're planning on selling it. And the other biggest concern is too, is if somebody buys it right away, what's to not say that instead of just a housing eligibility move, that they're not gonna try to build something else, like a hog confinement or something. It's not something necessarily somebody wants as a neighbor. So that's also a concern of ours.
Any questions? Okay, is there a rebuttal to the statement? Thank you.
As far as drainage is concerned, the lay of the property, I've actually have a map here that shows some elevations, if I could.
Mm-hmm. You got an Elmo. Scott can help.
We can show it on the, would you like me to hand these out to you?
Oh, that'd be great.
Sure.
You can show them and then we can look.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the top of the map would be the north side of the property. As you can see, the north half of the piece that we would like to break off is roughly 1,464 feet in elevation. The south portion is 1,450 feet. So we're seeing 14 feet of drop from the north side of the property to the south side of the property. And then across the property, we're at 1,458 to 1,453. That's 5 feet of drop. So you can see that the water or any runoff would actually flow to the southeast, avoiding the stock dam that the adjacent property owner has. We wouldn't have any runoff from the proposed building site to the stock dam.
Any questions?
And as far as septic, everyone knows that a septic system is going to be positioned downhill from the house. It won't be uphill from the house. So we'll be even further away from this said stock dam with the septic system.
Anything else? Any questions? Okay. What are your thoughts? Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So where he's talking about where that elevation runs through and where the stock dam is, this is kind of right along the property line. Our stock dam is right back behind those big trees, but all of that is water that runs through it. It's all connected. It's built right beside that natural waterway that runs through there. So anything that does run down those hills is gonna go into the water, which is gonna go right to by the stock dam. So it does all flow. And where he's talking about building a house is towards the front of that property is even actually worse. Cause if you actually built it towards the back, it would be better, cause it's actually up on the hill more so. Then you might have a little bit more flow, but this would be just kind of right along that edge where everything would run down into. So you can see the water that's sitting in the ditch right there, or not ditch, but the waterway. That's constantly wet. It's, even in drought time, that's, you can't ride a quad through there without getting wet tires. So I just wanted you to see a straight on view of it. It does actually all slope down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barth.
You know, change is always going to be happening, and, you know, in this area here, it wouldn't surprise me if there isn't an immense amount of change between Sioux Falls and the casino over there in Iowa. I mean, even there could be tour groups going to Gitche Manitou with a little headquarters over there on that Blacktop Road. You know, if not this, then what? And if, you know, if it's a wedding barn with 200 cars a day, or if it's you know, several more houses, that whole road is likely to be having more cars and more houses than cows and pasture. This is the way change happens. It's not going to stay the same forever. Although it has been suggested to me that I put in an ordinance to zone things museum. I'm not going to do that.
Commissioner Heiberger.
Just a couple of comments. One was that the driveway will be regulated as to where it goes by the highway department, and I think that the applicant commented on that. They've got pretty strict rules about how the distance between driveways and hills and everything else. The driveway may end up on the gravel. That's not for us to say. And the septic tank, wherever it's placed, will be regulated by the state of South Dakota, and they obviously do not want any septic runoff running into water, and it's their responsibility to make sure that those placement is proper and that the soil type is proper to even have a septic tank. So water issues, I lived on the end of a line too at one time, and that is the water people's problem, and they need to fix that if that is an issue. So,
Any other comments?
I have one question for Scott's office. You know, across the street from there is Iowa.
That's correct.
The world doesn't end at the South Dakota state line. Do we have any concerns about joint with Iowa, with the stuff within a certain distance, et cetera? I mean, we're in compliance with
We are.
all of our notifications. Okay.
Any other questions?
A point to Commissioner Karski. There isn't a required setback for houses, residential houses. You know, if it had been a hog confinement facility, then we would have been notifying people on the other side of the line there.
Anything else? I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to uphold the planning department's decision to move the building eligibility.
This motion, is there a second?
Second.
Comments? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Benega?
Aye.
Heiberger?
Aye.
Karski?
Aye.
Barth?
Aye.
Bender?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to item 13. Oops, no, sorry, item 12. It's a public hearing to consider an appeal of a decision by the Minnehaha County Planning Commission to approve conditional use permit 1922 to allow gravel extraction on the property described as the southwest quarter, section 25, T102 north, R51 west. David, good morning.
Good morning, Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. Conditional use permit 19-22 was appealed by the petitioner, Jim Sukup. This property is located, as you can see here, the intersection at Interstate 90 and South Dakota State Highway 38. It's located just to the east, about a half mile. And this property is located where the petitioner would like to have the haul road would actually be on a gravel road, which is 261st to the south, as you can see that red outline there. The area of mining, the area of the mining operation would be about 55 acres, and the whole thing takes up about 144 acres. I've supplied a lot of the letters from Mr. Sukup to you, as well as the haul road agreement that was supplied to the planning office after the planning commission meeting, as well as the appeal letters and all the other documents that include the minutes with the testimony from the opposition or the residents in the area along 261st Street that came to the planning commission meeting, and as well as their information for your review and comment. The notice was sent out on May 29th to all the people that spoke in favor or against this proposal or this conditional use permit request of this meeting. The Planning Commission, they voted unanimously 7-0 to approve conditional use permit 19-22. And I've got some pictures that kind of show the site as well as some of the documents that the petitioner submitted. This is the site plan. As you can see, the area, it's kind of hard to see, but it's hashed out in crosshatch. Again, that 55 acres there extends on both sides of that creek that runs right through the middle there of that property. This is the buffer plan that describes how the applicant would be planting trees along some of the roads along 465th. And you see I-90 in the distance there, so there would be a berm elevation to buffer the interstate. And the next slide kind of shows that in detail with I-90 to the left, and then the berm, and then to the right of that image would be where the mining operation would exist, and then it spells out the elevations there, as you can see. The haul road, which is called the truck route, is directly going east, so it's not quite at 465th, so it's just offset from that. There is an existing driveway there, as you see in some of the pictures, that goes straight to the east towards, you can see there's an existing industrial area there with a concrete precast plant located near the intersection of I-90 and 38. And then 466th is that crossroad that connects with South Dakota 38. There are additional businesses to the east of that concrete precast plant that have been approved with warehousing. And from this, you can see that driveway that goes straight. This is where the petitioner would be accessing the proposed mining operation. And this is an existing farm. This is actually the property owner, their residence, or one of them. And then this is 465th, looking north towards the interstate. You can see the trucks off in the distance there, going east-west. This is looking back south towards, there's a shelter belt there. That's the farmstead. That's the property, the subject property. This is 261st Street, looking east. This is at the intersection of 465th. As you can see, this is taken in May. The conditions of the road were, as Scott mentioned, this is looking back east towards, you can kind of see off in the distance there's a residential house that's also located to the southeast of where this proposed mining operation would be. And that is that is the property owner as well. This is that house that you're looking at off in the distance. As you can see, it's a newer house there. This is looking to the northwest towards the mining operation where it would be. Then this is looking back west towards it's a little bit further than that, but the entrance to the gravel pit would be off in the distance there. This is looking, so there is an existing mining operation that's located to the east of 466th Avenue and south of South Dakota Highway 38, kind of right along the west side of the Skunk Creek Basin there. As you can see, the truck coming at from the distance there. And this is looking north on which is a paved road, which is 466th Avenue that was required to be paved as part of previous conditional use permits.
Madam Chair, just a quick question for David. That picture you had of the truck coming, that was immediately to the right of where your next picture is, right? I mean, you're looking north on your next picture after this where I interrupted you. Go back to that picture if you may. Okay, so that truck was coming from the right as we look at this, whereas the proposed gravel pit is to our left.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep, to the west. And then this is a picture looking south on 466th Avenue. This is also a previous requirement of conditional use permits that no trucks be allowed to go south towards South Dakota State Highway 42, which is about 3 miles to the south of this location where the picture was taken. And that would be it for the pictures. So I'll answer any questions if you have them. There are 23 conditions, and as was spelled out in the minutes, the requirements, there was one additional condition added for 261st Street. to not allow any truck traffic to go west of the driveway entrance that I've showed. So the county commission may take action to approve, deny, or amend the conditional use permit request upon taking public testimony.
Madam Chair, I'd like
Commissioner
to
Barth.
comment on this picture as well. That existing truck that came towards us in the other picture came from a gravel extraction location that was approved, and we insisted that they not go south on this. At the same time, there are a number of gravel operations to the south there whose trucks may well be coming this way. It says no trucks, but the condition was on the one on the east-west road, not on the ones to the south. So potentially there are going to be trucks coming this way or going that way, I guess, but they're not involved with the person we insisted that they not go south on. So I don't know if I made myself clear or not.
Commissioner Karski.
The applicant, Mr. Sukup Construction, is only appealing the one condition, and that's that loads be tarped. So when we take action, are we addressing the whole process or just that one provision, that one condition, I think it's 19, that loads be tarped?
You're addressing the whole conditional use permit appeal, so the planning commission recommended approval, and that includes all of the conditions in there.
So we can approve it without number 19 if we decide that that's the right
That's
thing
correct.
to do, and that loads be tarped. And I think that should be really the point of this whole discussion is, do we require that loads be tarped coming off of this gravel
You can,
pit?
yeah, you can decide that as a body.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Barth.
and I know that there are people here from Hartford and stuff that can discuss this, but after consideration, the Hartford suggested that we could make it just that the Sukup operation comply with SDCL 32-15-18, which does not require tarping. And I don't know if I want to go on at this point. We can let the applicants and opponents discuss things, but that SDCL thing applies to everybody. And so if a boulder falls off of a truck and does severe damage, does any damage, you know, that if a piece of lumber falls off a truck, you're liable for it. And so that's a state law, and I think that the Hartford people are here and may want to address it, but so there is a change potentially we would make on number 19 and just change it to where they would comply with that state statute.
Okay, thank you. Anything else while David's still here? If not, if the applicant is here, they could come forward and speak. Name and address, please. Thanks.
Nate Gonseth, 525 East Lakeview Drive, Brandon, South Dakota, 57005. I am the CFO of Sukup Construction, here speaking on Mr. Sukup's behalf. He's unavailable right now. Correct, Mr. Karski. The only concern we had was the requirement to be tarped. That doesn't work real well for the operation out there. Our trucks, although we're ordering them going forward all retrofitted with tarps, they don't currently have tarps on them. It'd be significant expense to put them on there, significant decrease in cycle times, things like that. We think it's appropriate that we be subject to the statutes as everybody else is, and we're happy with everything else. We've got a haul road agreement in place. We're going to put signage up, no going west, all that kind of stuff.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here who's opposed, particularly to this change with respect to tarping? All right, then I guess we don't need a rebuttal. It's up to us. Anybody have any comments besides what Commissioner Barth had to say? Commissioner Heiberger.
Before I heard Commissioner Barth, I was also going to jump on that bandwagon that we don't need more ordinances and we don't need more laws to do what is actually already in the law. And so I'm just wondering, so would we just strike the line? We don't have to add in there that he has to comply with the state law because that's already the state law. So that doesn't need to be a part of our ordinance because that just goes without saying. And I'm just wondering if if we can approve, I'm wondering how we would say it, State's Attorney, just approve by omitting, are you sure it's number 19? I want to make
Yeah,
sure we
it's
have the
number
right
19.
Number 19. To uphold with the omission of number 19. How do you want it stated? And I would make it a motion.
I think, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I believe that you would just state upholding, well, I think what you should say actually, Commissioner, is to amend, to strike requirement 19, if that's your intention, and then to approve as amended.
Okay. That's my motion, and I have a comment if there's a second.
So motion and a second and a comment.
And my comment would be that I believe Sukup probably is working towards putting tarps on. I had a conversation because I am in the trucking industry too, and so I understand some of their issues, although I don't do gravel. That tarps are expensive to put on, and that has been the move because for truck drivers probably like Sukup, where they're dropping rocks and breaking people's windshields, they have people chasing them down and ask them to pay for it, and then there's the insurance issue and everything. So I believe they're a good partner in saying, you know, we need to get this fixed, but you can't do that overnight. So hence my motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments, Commissioner Barth?
Madam Chair, I know you're surprised I want to comment more, but there's a problem with 261st Street. And believe it or not, it all goes back to the Brower subdivision, which is built incorrectly and drains all kinds of water down onto 261st Street. And so the damage to that road, I think, caused a lot of concern amongst the neighbors who came out objecting to this project. And I drove it on Sunday, on Father's Day, and it was passable, but it was not good. And I would also say there are a number of expensive houses going up there. Well, there's at least one expensive one there now, and it looked to me like there were a couple other lots. But they were to the west of this location, so dust and stuff from this probably won't be affecting them. And thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Roll call vote, please.
Heiberger,
Aye.
Karski,
Aye.
Barth,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Okay, that takes us to item 13, which is okay. There's a motion to approve. To make sure we got our bases all covered, we'll take a motion to approve as amended.
A motion to approve is amended.
Second.
So motion and a second, and we'll do another roll call vote.
Karski,
Aye.
Barth,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Heiberger,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously as well, so thank you. Thanks, Olivia, keeping us on track. So that takes us to item 13, which is to authorize the chair to sign the 2019 Minnehaha County Jail per diem contracts with a number of our partner counties. Michelle Boyd, welcome back.
Good morning again, Michelle Boyd with the Sheriff's Office. Each year we take a look at our daily bed rate and work with the auditor's office to get a accurate, up-to-date cost, true jail cost for the bed rate. So this year it's been calculated at $97.34 a day. It's a small increase from the previous rate of $96.45. As you know, we used to operate the Community Correction Center, and that has been closed for the most part, except for a few utilities that are out there until we do something with that building. But otherwise, we have the changes in place. As you know, we haven't been able to rent beds due to the Correction Center closing. But in August or September of this year, we're going to have the 5th floor addition completed. That's an additional 128 beds. And we have a contract with Lincoln County for 45 beds. So we'll start filling those with Lincoln County beds. And then we will also be able to rent some space to the surrounding counties. We've included contracts from 13 additional counties besides Lincoln County that will be able to start bringing their prisoners here. And this updated rate will go into effect July 1st. The state's attorney's office has reviewed the contract, and so we're just requesting the signature of the chairman, and then we'll get these sent out to the other counties to begin that service again at the end of this year. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Heiberger.
I have one just because I don't remember, Michelle. So the contract that we have with Lincoln County, is there an accelerator already in there so that they know that they'll be, I'm assuming they're going to be increased to the same price?
Yes, they will start at the $97.34 when we open that 5th edition with 45 beds.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions? Commissioner Barth.
Michelle, are we doing this at a loss, or are we doing it at cost, or are we making a nickel?
We do not make money on this. However, we do put all of our true costs in here. And so some of the costs obviously are utilities, the food service, the medical. We also put some for the supervision of the facility as well. And then there is the administrative fee that goes into managing the contracts. But no, there's not a lot of fluff in this.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to,
So move. Excuse me.
Second.
motion and a second to approve this contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is to consider a motion to appoint one of the applicants to the Siouxland Library Board for a 3-year term. Craig Dewey, good morning.
Good morning, Craig Dewey, Commission Office. As you know, the county has intergovernmental partnerships across a few different organizations, one of which is the library. Metro Communications for 911 service would be another example of such a partnership with the local area. And the Siouxland Libraries operate not only in Sioux Falls, but in some of the surrounding communities as well. The library board is composed of 5 members. 4 of those appointments go through the city and the mayor, and there is one appointment from the county. And each term is 3 years. The county's appointment came open earlier this spring. They happen to meet every other month, so the last meeting in May was the last meeting that the prior member had served. We're fortunate in the area that we have people who are interested in participating in libraries, and I think, in fact, Commissioner Heiberger has worked on some library issues earlier on in her political life. So we have Jody Fick, the director of the Siouxland Libraries here. We did receive 2 applications, one from Ann Land and one from John Thiessen. Ms. Land lives in Del Rapids. Mr. Thiessen lives in Sioux Falls. I did a review of the bylaws governing the library board, and there is language, while not explicitly requiring the county's appointment to be from outside of Sioux Falls, there is strong language about making sure that rural interests are represented so that there is a perspective outside in the county as far as that county appointment to the board. I don't know if the either applicant is here today, but they were both contacted last week and notified that this hearing would be taking place, and I would invite Jody Fick up if she has anything to add about the library board.
Good morning.
Good morning. I don't see you too often as a board, so it's really good to be here today. With the 3-year term, usually the board members like to serve both terms, so it isn't very often that we have a change in representation. The library board provides a very valuable service in advising us to make sure that the library is serving all users in the right way. And so I'm really excited about the applicants. I did have a chance to talk to the one who lives in the rural Del Rapids, actually Baltic area, and she is a library user and is very interested in how the library can better serve all citizens across the county. So,
any questions?
Jody,
Yes.
the other 3 or whatever are on the board currently, can you tell me where their location is at?
they all live within Sioux Falls.
Okay.
They do represent a variety of backgrounds. We have someone from the education field. We have some person, Joel Rosenthal just came on, and he has been on the board in the past, but just came on, works with Central States, so he's got an interest in ag and business. We have another new member coming on from the city who is a former city clerk. So we have some government representation. This person that you potentially will be approving is a homeschooler, so I get that added and lives in a rural area. So that's a really important thing, that we have a variety of backgrounds that are represented. The fourth person has been from the tech world, so has also a marketing background, so that helps us and represents a younger demographic.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd make a motion to appoint Ann Land as the library representative for Minnehaha County.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? If not, roll call vote, please.
Barth.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Heiberger.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye.
Bender.
Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to her, and thank you to both applicants. And there are always lots of opportunities to serve, so we really appreciate people who apply, and just hope that people keep looking for opportunities to serve. So
Is Ann here?
thank you.
Is Ann here?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Oh, you are.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
gonna say, who is this lady that's back here?
Well, come forward.
Thank you. My name is Ann Land. I live at 47584 249th Street, Del Rapids, rural Del Rapids. Thank you for approving me. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
So,
A number of us have had an opportunity to serve on that board. I think you will I personally really enjoyed it, so I think you will really
I wanted
enjoy
to do
it.
it many years ago, and things just didn't work out, but thank you.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Oh, Commissioner Heiberger.
I'm the current liaison for Minnehaha County, and so hopefully we'll see you in July at our first meeting. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that takes us to liaison reports. Are there liaison reports this morning? Commissioner Karski.
Last Tuesday morning, Commissioner Heiberger and I flew out to Charleston, South Carolina with 14 other representatives from the community, the city, the healthcare systems, and we spent Tuesday afternoon and most of Wednesday meeting at the Charleston Center, which is a mental health and addiction counseling center. They have modeled similarly to what we are looking at, how we are looking to build our triage center. Earlier during public comment, we heard about, addressing not just the supply of drugs, but the demand of drugs. And unfortunately, a lot of people that are addicted to drugs also, and I'm going to sound a lot like an insurance agent trying to sound like a mental health and addiction counselor, but they have co-occurring mental health issues that go along with the drug use. So it's a complex issue, and we're doing our best to address it. And our trip to Charleston was to really get a look at the brick and mortar and operation of what a triage center is. And it was very beneficial for us to go there and do that. And it just really kind of puts that another piece of that puzzle together about how we can have the best and benefit from other people's experience and shorten that curve, I guess, when it comes to opening our triage center. We also met with, and I don't remember his last name, his first name was Vic. He's a commissioner for Charleston County out there, and he's also a judge, and we met with him, and Commissioner Heiberger could talk more about this because this has to do with the criminal justice reform and those issues, but spent well over an hour talking to him about the initiatives that they have taken on in their county.
Thank you. I'll just kind of continue on there. For one, these trips, these people were from a lot of different areas, were paid for by different grants. And so the grant that I went underneath was from a state agency, not from Minnehaha County, but Dean's was paid for a grant that was given to Minnehaha County. And so the people in that group were split up in different grants. None of the money came directly from Minnehaha County taxpayers. And I was out there also looking at telehealth and mental illness and first responders, which hopefully will be going statewide at some point. And so that's what I was there for. Spent a lot of time talking to the commissioner out there about their coordinated council, which we are working on the Sioux Empire Leadership Council here in Minnehaha County, and some of their ups and downs of putting together their team and kind of getting information of the direction we're going and how beneficial it has been to them and some of the different avenues that they've used. So I do have another liaison report,
Okay.
and I'm liaison to the treasurer's office. And earlier this year, we did meet with the treasurer because there was a concern about monthly bank reconciliations had not been done since last June 2018, and we had asked for a completion date of last Friday to have those reconciliations done from June 2018 through May of 2019. The treasurer reported that they had completed through October of 2018, but checking with the auditor's office, actually the only reports that have been completed are the June 2018 and the July 2018 bank reconciliations. So we will continue to look forward to the treasurer's office completing the paperwork that needs to be done.
Commissioner Barth?
And so down at the triage center that you guys visited, was it a city, a county, or combined effort? I mean, who's running things?
That's a great question, because we asked that question because it wasn't readily apparent to us. And we're very much a hybrid of all of that. It's not, we're looking at making ours an independent organizational unit from the county and the city. And they receive a lot of funding from the state, which we would love to have, but right now that's still an ongoing conversation. But it's very much a city, county, state they have the MUSC, and that's a healthcare provider. So it's, they together run an organization and hire the people that operate it. So it's a hybrid of government, basically.
Takes more than just a village, huh?
Oh, boy.
Any other liaison reports this morning? Okay, that takes us to new business. Is there any new business? Commissioner Barth?
And now for something completely different. I think that we all saw recently where our premier recycling organization here is no longer accepting plastic bags. And recognizing that we're not going to be taking action overnight, I think we should discuss the idea of doing away with the use of plastic bags in our county. And I think anybody that drives in the rural area sees plastic bags stuck on barbed wire fences all over the place. And I'm not saying let's do it today. Let's look into it and see what can be done, because clearly it's not working out, especially if they're no longer taking them.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Old business? Anything under old business? Commissioner Barth?
I've suggested a couple of legislative items. One is affecting the treasurer's office. You know, recently we found we were no longer charging for assisting people in remote locations. You know, someone comes to the window and you can take care of their business right away. Someone calls you from Puerto Rico, and it may take a number of phone calls and significant time, and we're not able to bill anything for it. I think that we should ask our state association to propose some legislation that would compensate us for those hours that we work. And then additionally, I'd like to revisit the issue of funerals. As you know, we pay for indigent folks to be buried or whatever, and we previously brought a proposal to the legislature to allow us to cremate those that, which is less costly to the taxpayer, and the legislature chose not to act on that to our benefit, and it agreed the number of full funerals that we're paying for is going down, but and the number of cremations is going up. But it's a continuing issue, and I think that we should be given more authority to take care of it as inexpensively as possible.
Anything else? I'd like to just remind everyone that we have a budget meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. here. And there are updated documents on Dropbox. I'd really like to thank the auditor's office for their work in getting those documents updated for us. And so hopefully we're going to meet at 8, and the goal is to be done by 10 tomorrow morning. Okay? All right. If there's no other old business, I'd entertain a motion to recess the Minnehaha County Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We will gather back together about 10:35 if possible or so.
I didn't know we had an executive session.
Yeah.